Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bold and the Brave, a Parent Leader podcast. I am one of your co-hosts. My name is Carlos Maldonado. I'm usually not in front of the camera. This is the first time that I'm co-hosting. I'm usually behind the scenes producing the podcast, recording the interviews. So I'd like to introduce myself a little bit. I work with NPLI in the communications and marketing team. I'm the lead of that team. And I like to say that my job is to make the team look good, meaning that anything that gets published publicly or is shared with the outside world basically goes through me so that it's the best looking material that it can be. I'm here today joined by my wonderful co-host, my friend Melvette. Melvette, can you tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about yourself as well?
Yeah, so it's good to be back on the Bold and Brave podcast. My name is Melvette Hill. I am a parent leader, and I also get to lead the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity here in Connecticut. I'm the executive director and also a graduate of the phenomenal Parent Leadership Training Institute, which we know we always have a lot of listeners nationwide from PLTI and IPLI and family leadership training. So glad to be here. I'm excited today that we have another co-host with us, a great parent leader, Joshua Vaughn. Josh, why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Certainly. What a pleasure. Hi, everyone. My name is Joshua Vaughn. I go by Josh. I'm from Connecticut. I am also, too, a parent leader alumni of PLTI, if you will. I am a father of 5, and I'm also, too, a father leader. So looking forward to being a part of today's podcast.
Yeah, so we have lots to catch up on. All three of us, were together recently at the New England Fathering Conference in Mystic, Connecticut. It was such a good time to be there. I would love to hear your take on it, but I've been a few times. I've been, I think, 3 or 4 years, and in my role at the commission, I serve as co-chair to one of the work groups within our Connecticut Fatherhood Initiative. But Carlos, you've been there before. Josh, you've been there before. What was it like? What was the experience like for you this time around?
Yeah, you're right. This was my second year attending. Last year we were there. NPLI was there. I was there with a table, an information table, and I also got to attend some of the sessions that were part of the conference. This year we also had the table. I was also able to attend the conference, but we were also able to present a workshop. I love that conference. I love seeing all the fathers. I love hearing the stories of the fathers that are in attendance. I love seeing how organizations and government entities and all those that are in attendance, how they're supporting fathers and their own communities. This is a New England specific thing. I wish this was throughout the country. I wish this was a national thing, like more states or more regions of the country were doing things like this. Second year, great experience again. We'll probably be back again next year. So, yeah.
What about you, Josh? What was it like for you this year?
This year was very interesting. I didn't get the chance to attend the entire conference as I normally do. This is my 3rd year going. This year was unique, though. I had the opportunity to co-present or be a part of, if you will, the conversation for the breakout session and what was led regarding the fathers and the economic mobility and how to really get them partnered in the work. And so I felt like that was a very unique opportunity, and I enjoyed it. I also enjoyed, forging some new relationships with other fathers and other father attendees and those that also were able to go to really keep the connections going, right? And so I thought it was a really good conference. I always look forward to being able to share space on subject matters of fatherhood because I believe it's an important topic and it's something that really requires our intentionality, both partnership, community, and anyone that's willing to be a part of the work. I think it's important.
So our workshop that we worked so hard to put together, and you were actually the star of the workshop that we did at the New England Fathering Conference was Pathways to Economic Mobility for Fathers. And really our intention was to have myself, Donna Thompson-Bennett, who's the executive director for the National Parent Leadership Institute, as well as Josh, just really set the stage for people to understand how to build pathways to education and opportunity and economic mobility for fathers, as well as grandfathers and other caregivers. And so it was a really interactive session. We had some small group discussions. And I think what we laid out for people was you, Josh, as an example of someone who's an entrepreneur, someone who has taken his lived experience and used that to inform people in government and nonprofit and philanthropy to really understand how to build those pathways of leadership, of economic opportunity, which really is encapsulated in the idea that parents are consultants and should be paid for their expertise and also their time and what they're offering to people in leadership as they continue to change systems. And so we can't do that without the voice of people with lived experience. You do that really well. You show up in these spaces, both in our state and nationally. And I think people were really surprised, not by you, but by the idea that entrepreneurship and being a consultant is a pathway to economic mobility for fathers and others. So I thought that was really good. You represented well the whole presentation that was put together that highlighted your journey, from being a teen dad to being the exemplary gentleman and professional that you are today was really awesome. And so much so that someone said, well, can you go back to the slide that shows your book that you wrote? I mean, people thought that you had written a book, Josh, because it was just such an outstanding piece of storytelling. So I thought that really, we all did together a great job creating this story and helping people to understand the story in that way. So I know. Are you still thinking about it? Are you still thinking about writing the book, Josh?
Yes, I am. So much to put into it, though, and think about it, where to start. It's truly a goal. It's a goal.
Was there anything from both of you, Carlos, you're also a dad, was there anything in your roles as fathers that stood out to you at the conference this year? And Josh, I know you were there for a short amount of time, but was anything from the feel of it, the look of it, the content, or the people you met? What stood out to you this year? If anything.
Yeah, lots of things, but I always enjoy the dad stories. So just to paint a picture for those that don't know what the conference or how the conference is structured, each day of the conference there is I wouldn't call it a breakout session, but it's like in the main hall there is a group of parents or fathers rather talking about their life journey, their fatherhood journey, and how some of the organizations that are there have helped them in that journey, or how the networking that they'd had with parents in these spaces have helped them in that journey. So I always, again, this is my second year. Those are the things that I'm really looking forward to each year, I would say. Those conversations between fathers that are moderated by our good friend, Doug Edwards, a good friend of NPLI, a good friend of PLTI. He does an excellent job of moderating those, and the stories that come out of those resonate with me a lot. So I'm always looking forward to them.
Yeah.
Anything else resonating with you, Josh?
Oh, well, in the time that I was there, it was good to see some of the familiar faces of some of those, those connections that were made from just the previous year going and the year before that. And so to be able to see the guys are still there, and not just in the capacity of just those that are there for the work, but just those fathers, those proud dads that are going and being a part of that conversation and being able to share their story, like Carlos said, it was inviting and it was very encouraging.
That's awesome. So I would say being a leader in community is what you do, Josh. And I wonder if you can share how your journey as a father shaped your leadership. I know you shared a little bit with us during the conference, but for the listeners out there, for those who are watching us, how has your journey as a father shaped your leadership?
Well, great question. My journey as a father has shaped my leadership in many ways, but just a few would be the opportunity to understand the experience. I started off, prior to getting married and having more children, I started off as a single dad. I was a teenage single dad. And so a lot of different resources that I had experienced trying to be able to be a part of, to some of the resources to take from, they weren't as equitable, right? And so I didn't know then what I knew now, but thanks to PLTI, Parent Leadership Training Institute, that gave me the skills to really be able to understand and recognize some of those deficits that had happened. But as I think about my journey, or my fatherhood journey, I think about also the lack of representation of fatherhood, and how many times, for myself being very much so a weird dad and wanting to be a part of the work because I love fatherhood. It's who I am. It's not what I do, it's who I am. And so I find myself wanting to be able to hear what's happening with other dads and be able to build those bonds and connections and strengthen each other. And so I think about ways that I can take my story, my experience, and connect with other fathers and be able to see how do we move forward with communicating in a healthy way, that there are some ways to change and improve representation for fathers, and how to ensure that our voices are heard and elevated at the table, right? Because it's important. Father representation is very important. And so I think about that all the time. And I'm very, very much aware of that.
Yeah. So leadership looks different for fathers in general, maybe sometimes different from leadership, how it shows up in mothers or others. What are some of the ways that fathers can lead? And I want you to encourage fathers today, right? What are some of the ways that they can show their leadership? Because I think sometimes society places labels on fathers, especially fathers from different racial and ethnic backgrounds, their assumptions. And I think fathers can lead in different ways. I'm not a father, so I don't think I should be telling people how they can lead. I can talk to some moms, but encourage fathers today. What are some ways that they can show their leadership in their home, in schools, in community, in their places of worship? What does that look like? What are the different ways that fathers can lead?
Oh, wow, that's a very good question. And you shared already, it's unique to each dad, right? But
Yeah.
what I would say is that being able to find what it is that you're passionate about in your fatherhood, in your strength. Most times you're passionate about something that you're strong in. And us as men, that's what we're proud about. That's what makes us even more proud, right? So if you're good at cooking, and it could be one meal, if you're the best dad that makes pancakes in the morning, every weekend make that your goal to make sure that you're making pancakes in the morning. If you're really good at drawing and sketching, a lot of dads outside of what they do as a profession, outside of who they show up as the provider, they're creative, they are gifted, they're talented. And so use those gifts. Your leadership will allow for you to use your gifts, use your talents, use what you're good at, what you're passionate about, to really bring that into the space with your children, your family. If you like poetry, if you write poetry, write a poem and read it to your kid and have them be a part of that. If you're good at drawing, draw with your children, or go to the school and do some drawings with the schools. Find out if there's a way that you can connect on your day off, or if you have a little time to kind of edge in there. If you're at church and you're good at making voices and being animated, be a part of the Sunday school lessons, right? Be a part of those different opportunities to serve in a way that you find it to be most fun, most organic, right? Because leadership has to be organic. If it's not organic, then you're not coming into the role being your authentic version of you. But if you're going finding that passion and zeal, you'll thrive. And so I would encourage dads to really be passionate about who they are and the gifts that they have, and be open to sharing them with your children first, right? Because they're your first rooters and cheerleaders, and then move on to the pastures that you find green.
Yeah, I love that. Move on to the pastures that you find green. I see, Carlos is coming in. Carlos, I want to invite you into this conversation, but I'm also, here standing, sitting, doing whatever here with you, laughing, because I also want to highlight that leadership requires stretching. And while Carlos loves to be the person behind the scenes and producing and orchestrating and directing, it is a stretch, right? To be here on screen. He's doing an awesome job. But to be on screen, right, to stretch outside of the norm and what feels comfortable, I think leadership, especially in fathers, there's a need to show young people and their children that you can stretch into something that, you might not be used to or accustomed to, and it's going to be okay, right? And I think you're modeling that for us today. You're leading us today out front. So I appreciate that.
Trying my best, right? Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You can't grow without stretching, at least the way I look at it. So I just look at this little step as part of that growth journey that I'm on. And just to touch on what Josh was saying about being passionate and using that to help in your leadership journey, that's sort of why I'm here as well. Even if I was behind the camera, I'm passionate about telling stories, about using technology to tell those stories. And so I wholeheartedly agree with what Josh said.
Yeah.
Find what you're passionate about and show up with that every day. Like, be present, show up, make that your thing. You can't go wrong with that. So, yeah.
I think that's great. That kind of gives us like those seeds of wisdom to plant for folks, right? It's, if you have a passion and everyone has something that they like, something that they're excited about, something that they want to do, that's what you allow to drive and fuel you to do however you want to lead. And so I was thinking, when you all were talking, I was thinking about something my husband is really good at. He's really good with the little ones. This goes for grandparents too. So right now we have 2 grandsons. They're 3 and 5. And I watch how my husband is, right? Because we're watching. This is the thing. It's not just your children watching, but others are watching how men lead and how they show up. And my husband is so good with the little ones, right? I think about, like, as our children got older, right, it became a little harder for him to be soft with them because he had high expectations for them as they grew. But he's so gentle and kind, and he's like a big teddy bear with, the little ones who are preschoolers. And he's, starting to teach our grandson, the 5-year-old, how to tie his shoes. And he has such patience. And I'm like, he should really do like a dad's class on, like, here's how to teach your child or grandchild how to tie shoes. And my husband doesn't realize I'm watching him. He doesn't realize that that is a leadership skill, patience, right? And being kind and allowing people to make mistakes. And so I think there are many things that men do well. They don't realize that they're leading, but they are. They're out front leading, and we're watching. I think also that sometimes dads don't think they're leading, but they are, because they don't think people are following them, right? And so, but can we talk a little bit about that? Like, what does it mean to lead when you don't think that there are people behind you? Because sometimes fathers don't have support in community. But how do you continue to push forward and lead when you're struggling with, are people following me, or people seeing me and wanting to do these things with me? I'm going to open that up to both of you.
Well, I'll go. Well, I believe that it goes back to passion, right? It goes right back to passion. It goes back to understanding your yes and nurturing it. Nurturing your yes, nurturing your why you're there. I think anytime you're going into a leadership role, you want to know why you're going into that role. And if you're already like fathered, you're there, right? And so, okay, as I show up as a dad, what do I want to do that's going to allow me to grow through my prospects of being the best dad that I can be? What's my goals? How do I help to nurture my goals? And if there are others that are looking to follow, whether it may be one, it may be two, it may be your brother that's going to be a new dad, it might be a cousin that may be looking to you as inspiration, you can share with them, your ability to just grow, to be open, to be transparent. I think a lot of times if they're not watching, it's still important to know that you still need to show up as your best. Even during the times that you may not feel your best, you show up. I think the ability to show up is always something to be acknowledged. I think a lot of times as dads, we find the pressure, we see and we feel the pressures but the reality is showing up really is the first step. The second step is being able to be available. And I think that if we give ourselves grace, extend it to yourself, extend grace to yourself. And I think that's what's most important to dads. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to follow that.
Well, let's move on.
Right. Showing up is half the battle, I always say.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Josh, so you touched on your PLTI experience a little bit earlier in this conversation. I'm curious, though, as we think about systems and the work of recruiting parents and how we can do a better job of inviting and including parents in initiatives like PLTI and just in this type of work. I'm curious what you would say, or how you would say we could do a better job of that, of inviting and including parents or fathers in these types of initiatives and work.
Certainly. So I believe it's about the intentionality of going to the spaces that dads are. We are the dads. A lot of times fathers don't know what they don't know. And there are a lot of dads that want to know. And we learned this right at the New England Fatherhood Conference. That's why most proud dads go. They register to go because they want to learn more. But we have to find ways to go to the places that where they are, right? Where they are relaxed, where they are ready to learn, grow, and not because they're mandated to. I think a lot of times that's the issue. It's not the dads going to the dads that are mandated to do programs and learn about civic and democracy, but going to the places where it's like, hey, I see that you're really, really involved in your son's sports and your daughter's, curricular activities. Did you know that there's ways of opportunities for you to share, what drives that, what keeps you so eager to be a part of that work? It could be so organic. It could be so organic. It can be at a grocery store. It could be a lot of the marketing materials, ensuring that there's more male representation on marketing materials. Finding books. If you're going to distribute books, find books that have dads on the front of them, right? If it's something to do with artwork, find things that dads drew with their children. I think it's an intentionality. And it goes back to also going to places and to really have other dads, because, I believe strongly that other men help to support and bring other men to the space, right? Because they get to talk about their experience. It's a difference from, Melvette here sharing the space with us. She said, hey, listen, I'm not a dad, right? I could tell you the observations that I've had, but I'm not a dad. But it's a difference from like me having a conversation with you, Carlos, about fatherhood. We can relate. There's representation that is there, but we can relate to different experiences. It may not be the same, but there's similarities in experiences. And so when we go to certain spaces, it may be a barbershop, put the promos for PLTI, NPLI, pawn cards, see if you could talk to the barber there, talk to, if you're going to go to a pool hall, like, hey man, can I just leave these here? I play pool every Friday, but I think this would be a great opportunity for dads to know their voices are important. And listen, how do we bring dads to this space? We can do it. It's so organic. It doesn't take so much of the host being structured and having to have a format. Then you lose it. You lose insight when you're that particular, because that's not how you're going to find a dad. It's not that deep, right? And I think that's what's really, really important. Go to the places that they are, and then having marketing materials that represent them, that's most inviting to the space, because you don't want to discourage them before they even walk through the door.
Right. I'm definitely taking mental notes. I'm taking notes in our document, because being on the communication side, some of this resonates with me, and some of it is things that I wouldn't have thought about. So I'm definitely taking notes on how we can invite fathers into this work. I'm curious though a little bit. So we talked about showing up, right? How that's important. Once we invite those fathers into this type of work, what are some things that you see that could keep fathers from showing up into this work? So it's once we've organically invited them in, once we've had the conversation with them, are there things that you've seen in these spaces that we should think about changing or fixing so that we can get more fathers showing up?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I'll be honest, it's the topics, right? Fathers are very specific with topics. And so when you're inviting dads to spaces, it's good to know that they're coming here for a specific reason, and they want to get to that reason, get to the point, right? They don't want a whole bunch of, you warming up the milk. They want to get there and the bottle be ready, right? And it's not that they don't mean any harm. Dads don't mean no harm by it, but the patient tolerance, not every dad has all of the patience to kind of sit there and wait through that process. And so, give them a little appetizer, right? Which is important, but get to the opportunity of understanding what they're there for. If they want to learn about, systems, what about systems directly are you willing to learn? Are you willing to go through to find out before you get there, right? Because when you think about even curriculum, if it's a 20-week long program, they may just be really there because they want to learn about child support, but that may not be embedded in the curriculum. So why have them thinking that all along, oh, well, when we get to phase 2, there may be a little opportunity for, no, they may not even, by the time we get to phase 5, session 5, they may not go that far. They may say, no, wow, because they're checked out. They had a objective, they had a goal, and that's how that hunter in us as men, that's just like, get to the point, get me where I need to be. And I think that's really important, because every dad and most men, there's a cause and there's a reason and there's an effect. Right. And so we want to make sure that we're giving opportunity for those dads to really share what it is that they're coming to this space for. And they're very open. They're very transparent. That's one thing about most fathers. They're not going to sit there and beat around the bush. Fathers are very direct. They're very, right to the point. Like, listen, I'm here because I want to learn about this. Or I had an experience and I need help because I need to get out of why I'm feeling this way or why systems are, responding to me in this way. So I think it's really about just being very direct.
Yeah. Melvette, are you taking notes?
I am taking notes. I mean, we think we do a really good job at recruiting fathers for our parent leadership training initiatives. And I only can speak for Connecticut. And we're always wondering, like, why fathers aren't coming? Why aren't they filling out the application? Why did they fill out the application and get accepted and didn't show up to retreat? Or to your point, Josh, why didn't they make it past session 5, right? And I would say there's a lot of judgment sometimes, right? Because people don't understand someone else's story. But what you're saying, what I hear you saying, and of course, like, you're speaking from your perspective and your viewpoint, what I hear you saying is sometimes we don't get to the point and we're not as direct as we say we are. And people, particularly dads, want to know, like, tell me what's on the menu, when are we going to have dessert, what's for dessert, right? And get me there, right? Like, let's move things along. Like, let's move this 7-course meal along so we can get to the good stuff. I also wonder too, in some families, dads have different types of responsibilities. And, sometimes dads are working really hard and they can't come out to a 3-hour class because maybe they're working 2 jobs, or maybe after the day job, they have other responsibilities, as does a mom in many cases, right? I think sometimes it's capacity and trying to fit people into the shape, like, here's the square, you have to fit into this square. This is what we're offering. I'm saying this out loud, understanding that we're going to have to make some changes, right? Like, everything is not a square and everything is not going to fit into a square. So how can we make accommodations? How can we think differently and innovatively about how we're approaching this conversation with dads and inviting them into this leadership development space? Josh, you and I have talked about that. We have some ideas. We won't share it now, but more to come. We'll share with you, Carlos, because it's not fully formed, because dads like to have things fully formed before they start discussing those things. But I think what's happening too in this conversation is that, I'm a person who can make something happen and make a change happen within my own purview, right? Like, I'm listening and saying, oh, we should. And then Carlos, you're the same. You're like, maybe we need to communicate differently. Maybe we need to have different colors that are appealing to dads. Maybe we need to show dads more in ads. I think it's a good way to start thinking more strategically about inviting dads into the space.
Absolutely.
And also understanding that it's not one size fits all either. I totally get that.
Right. Yeah. Here I thought it was only about those technical, not necessarily technical, but those limitations on time or duties, like you mentioned, Melvette. But I never thought about it being like it wasn't direct enough. The curriculum wasn't direct enough, or the event or program that we're hosting, that it wasn't getting to the point quickly enough. It's definitely good feedback, great feedback actually, that we can take back and act on to sort of improve our offerings. So thank you, Josh. Yeah, so as we're sort of winding down the conversation, if you could dream up one change for how fathers are supported in your community specifically, what would that be? What would it be?
Oh, that's a good one. Action. Action. And that's in a lot of different ways. That can go so many different ways, but I'll just say these three things. When we're thinking about systems, action. When we're thinking even about local, just on the ground level, day to day, school forms, or even putting the emergency contact instead of even putting just one or two or whichever, getting to that place of just action, no longer making it so narrow-minded. I think about that, shared about that. It's not a one-sided thing. It's getting out of those traditional mindset, that rigorous traditional mindset would allow a father to feel that he is recognized in the littlest ways. Because us as guys, we may not share it openly, like, oh man, that hurt my feelings, or I didn't like that too much, or that rubbed me the wrong way. But being able to see, like, oh wow, she asked me the question, or I didn't have to wait, to say, that I am the primary parent, right? Or that the child is, just with me solely, right? And solely, like, it's just being able to have the intentionality. And I think the action of that is what's going to be really that driving force for fathers to see. No longer being all the talk, but the action behind it is really what's most important.
Action.
Yeah.
As such a simple yet powerful word. Action. In all the ways. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Yeah, so on a similar note, is there anything that you really want to leave with fathers that might be listening to this episode or watching us on YouTube? Which, by the way, you all should be doing. Watch us on YouTube.
Watch us on YouTube.
Yeah, you get a better feel for the flow of the conversation if you're watching the video.
And they get to see this polo shirt that Josh has on that's pink and navy with white collar. He's like,
I was actually going to ask him after the call, like, where'd you get that?
Primark, man. Primark. If y'all got a Primark, check it out.
Okay, will do.
Yeah, man. What I would definitely say is to fathers, be encouraged. Take it one step at a time. I think that us as men, we put so much on our plates because we want to make those that are a part of our communities proud of us. And we talked about it on today's podcast, that we can be just us showing up makes the difference. And then extending grace to yourself. And then we share the word about stretching as leadership. Anytime you're in leadership, and as a father, you're in leadership automatically. It just comes with baggage. You showing up and understanding that you're going to have to stretch sometimes, right? And then the ability to know that every day is not going to be the same. So how you showed up yesterday, you're going to have to change some things to tomorrow, right? And be okay with those things and just give it your best. Give it your best, and, give yourself grace. Really give yourself grace. And I know in how we live in the PLTI world and realm is by our hopes, right? Really understanding how to nurture our hopes daily for ourselves will really make the difference. Understanding how to honor ourselves even through our own, course of thinking and actions, and knowing how to be open, right? And being able to say, hey, listen, would you mind, putting my name down, because that's gonna, that's gonna bother me. And you're gonna think about it, but that's gonna bother me. Most men, we're thinkers, and we let it rest with us. And then understanding that there's gonna be times you're gonna have to participate. There's gonna be times I'm gonna have to pass some things up. Like, I'm not gonna be able to. That's a great opportunity, but PLTI right now may not work this time around. But hopefully we can stay connected. Maybe there's some other opportunities for me to share my experience, right, and be able to listen to others through theirs, knowing that it's sensitive and safe spaces there, because their stories are sensitive, their stories are safe. And so I think it's really important for us to be able to, really just encourage a brother and a father when we see them. Hey, doing a great job. You see them in the grocery store and the kids are acting up. We just encourage you, say, hey, you see that? He looks all sometimes like, whoa, like, what he got it going on right now. Just give him a word of encouragement. Man, you're doing a great job. You got this, and it will lift their spirits. And I think that's what I would lead on today. Tell my fellow fathers and brotherhood, keep going. Don't give up.
That's it. That's the final word. So Josh, where can people follow you, hear more about your work and what you're up to? Is there Can they follow you on Instagram, LinkedIn?
Yeah,
Say
certainly.
it out loud.
Oh, wow.
Just-
What I got going on? Okay, well, I do have a upcoming men's event that's going to be hosted this upcoming month of June, June 8th from 2 to 6. This will be my third year men's event that I'll be hosting, a free event for all men here in the state of Connecticut to come out and to be able to just enjoy one another's experiences, build connection, network, forge those experiences. And so you can find me on Instagram, Vaughn Signatures, one word on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook, Joshua Vaughn. We're working on a Together We Stand page as we speak, and then my website, www.vaughnsignatures.com. And then you can contact me there. And LinkedIn, Joshua Vaughn. I'm an easy guy. And so I'm looking forward to connecting.
Thank you.
For this opportunity, Melvette and Carlos. Y'all rock. Thank y'all for all you.
Yeah,
You rock.
I couldn't ask for better stretch partners.
Oh, man,
Thank you
this was a
both
great,
for the
great
conversation.
podcast. Yeah.
You're both
Yeah.
rock stars. I love it.
And just so the folks listening at home and watching us at home, once this episode is released, you'll be able to find all of Josh's links in the description of the video. You'll be able to see it on social media. I'll make sure to link all of his social media accounts and his website in the description of the video. So, yeah, thank you all for joining us for another episode of The Bold and the Brave. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.